The coffee cup slipped from her fingers before she could catch it. It shattered against the airport lounge floor. And nobody around her moved. Nobody said a word. Because nobody understood what she was seeing. Nobody else in that crowded terminal felt the ground shift beneath their feet the way she did in that moment. Her eyes were locked on the television screen mounted above the departure boards. There was a man standing on that screen. A tall man. A composed man. A man surrounded by reporters, flanked by gleaming food trucks that stretched down a city block so long the camera could barely hold them all in frame. He was smiling. Not the desperate smile of someone performing for cameras. The quiet, earned smile of someone who had already won before he walked into the room. She knew that smile. She knew that face. She had once looked at that face across a courtroom and felt nothing. Now it was on national television. The reporter's voice cut through the noise of the terminal like a blade. His company is now valued at over $20 million. From a single-use food cart to a franchise operation spanning 3 states, Marcus Johnson has become one of the most remarkable entrepreneurial stories this country has seen in a generation. The woman's hand pressed flat against the cold glass wall beside her. Because 10 years ago, she had sat across from that same man in a divorce attorney's office and called him a failure. 10 years ago, she had packed her bags and taken the house, the car, and the children, and she had walked away without looking back. She had not looked back. Until now. And now she could not look away. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. His name was Marcus Johnson, and the story of what happened to him, and what he built from the wreckage of everything that was taken, is the kind of story that does not ask for your sympathy. It demands your attention. Marcus grew up in Mechanicsville, one of the older working-class neighborhoods tucked into the southwest side of Atlanta. His father, Raymond, spent 30 years on his knees fixing air conditioning units in the summer heat for whoever would pay him. His mother, Gloria, worked the overnight shift at Grady Memorial Hospital 3 nights a week, and then came home and made breakfast before the boys had to leave for school. There was never extra. There was always enough. And Raymond Johnson made certain his sons understood the difference. "You don't get to be lazy," his father told him once, sitting on the back steps with a cold can of soda after a 12-hour day. "Lazy is a luxury for men with trust funds. We work. That's what we are." Marcus took that in the way children take in the things their parents say when they don't realize they're teaching. He absorbed it quietly, filed it somewhere deep, and carried it forward. He was 24 when he met Vanessa. She was at a cookout held by a mutual friend. She was laughing at something across the yard. And when she turned and caught him looking, she didn't look away. That was the thing Marcus always remembered first. Most people looked away. Vanessa never did. She was beautiful. Genuinely beautiful in the effortless way that required no performance. She was also ambitious and sharp and funny in a way that caught him off guard. They talked for 4 hours that evening and barely noticed the party thinning around them. 3 years later they were married. 2 years after that, twin boys arrived. Elijah and Isaiah. 7 pounds 3 ounces each, born 14 minutes apart on a Tuesday morning in October. Marcus stood in that delivery room and felt something crack open inside his chest that had never been opened before. He looked at those 2 small faces and made a silent promise that had no words, only weight. He would work. That's what he was. And he did. He took commercial construction jobs. He pulled overtime so regularly the foreman stopped asking and just assumed. He worked weekends repairing fences, laying patios, doing whatever a willing pair of hands could earn. Every dollar went into a joint account. Every sacrifice went toward the modest house they bought in Decatur, the family SUV, the boys' school clothes, the future he was building one shift at a time. For several years it was enough. Then something changed in Vanessa. It happened gradually, the way erosion happens. Not all at once. In increments you barely notice until the ground is gone. She started spending more time on her phone. Not in a suspicious way. In a restless way. She would scroll through images of homes that dwarfed theirs, vacations on coastlines they had never seen. Lifestyles that existed in a register entirely removed from Decatur and construction over time. "Maya just got a new Benz," she said one evening at dinner, in a tone that wasn't quite resentment and wasn't quite envy but existed somewhere uncomfortable between the two. Marcus looked up from his plate. "Good for Maya. She posted about it. Her husband just got a promotion." "That's great." Vanessa set her fork down. "Don't you want more for us?" He looked at her for a moment. We have a house, 2 healthy sons, and food on the table. I work 60 hours a week for that. Yeah, I want more. But I'm not ashamed of what we have right now. She said nothing. She picked her fork back up. But something in her eyes had already gone somewhere else. The arguments came slowly at first. Then faster. Then in clusters. The topic changed, but the current underneath was always the same. She had expected a different life, and she had come to believe Marcus was the reason she didn't have it. He tried. He sat through conversations that felt like interrogations. He agreed to budget reviews that left him feeling small. He came home on evenings when he could barely keep his eyes open and still tried to be present, tried to be attentive, tried to be the man she seemed to need him to become. But the ground kept eroding. And then one Thursday evening, she told him she wanted a divorce. He thought she was exhausted. He thought it was another argument. He reached for her hand and she pulled it away, and the look on her face was not angry. It was decided. Vanessa. His voice was low. Talk to me. Whatever it is, we can work through it. We have 2 boys. I know we do, she said. I've already spoken to an attorney. The words landed like a physical thing. You already? He stopped. How long? That doesn't matter now. But it did matter. It mattered enormously. Because in the weeks that followed, Marcus would discover that Vanessa had not made a sudden decision. She had been planning for months. Separate bank accounts quietly opened. Consultations with a family law attorney. A paper trail carefully constructed to tell a particular version of their story to a judge. The divorce was brutal. It stretched across 7 months of hearings and filings and cross-examinations and legal fees that consumed the savings Marcus had spent years accumulating. His attorney was good. But Vanessa's was better. And the story her side told of an absent husband, an emotionally unavailable father, a man too consumed by work to be present, was built from enough half-truths to carry weight in a courtroom. When the final ruling came down, Marcus lost the house. He lost the SUV. He lost primary custody of Elijah and Isaiah. He was given supervised visitation. He sat in the parking lot of the courthouse for 40 minutes after the decision was read. He did not cry. He simply sat there and breathed, feeling the full weight of what had just happened settle into his bones. 7 years. That was how long he had worked and built and sacrificed and believed. 7 years gone in a single morning. The apartment he moved into was small. 2 rooms. A window that faced a brick wall. The building had a broken elevator that no one fixed and neighbors who played music until 2 in the morning. He paid the first month's rent and looked at what was left in his account. Within weeks, that too was gone. A series of setbacks arrived in a pile. His car, an aging sedan he had kept running through sheer stubbornness, finally gave out completely. A construction project he had been counting on fell through when the developer pulled funding. A minor injury on a different site put him out of work for 3 weeks. He moved out of the apartment. He moved into his van. It was a 2003 cargo van, rusted at the wheel wells, with a heating system that worked when it chose to and a passenger seat that had been bolted back in a permanent recline after someone removed it for a job years before. He parked it in a lot near a 24-hour laundromat, so he could use the bathroom and the outlet near the back wall to charge his phone. One night, a month into living in the van, Marcus sat in the back with a flashlight and counted his remaining money. $300. He spread the bills out on the van floor and looked at them for a long time. He thought about his father. He thought about Raymond Johnson on the back steps, soda can in hand, telling him that lazy was a luxury for men with trust funds. Then he thought about Elijah and Isaiah. He thought about the last visitation. Isaiah had climbed into his lap without asking, the way small children do when they simply trust you. Elijah had shown him a drawing. 2 figures. One tall, one small. Daddy and me, it said at the bottom in uneven crayon letters. Marcus folded the bills back up and made a decision. He was not done. The next morning he drove the van to a business district in Midtown and parked near a construction site where he used to work. It was just after 7:30. He watched the workers arrive. He watched them fan out looking for breakfast and find nothing within reasonable walking distance, except a gas station convenience store 3 blocks away. By 9 o'clock, he had counted 47 people making that walk. He sat there for 2 hours. And by the time he drove away, the idea that had entered his mind would not leave. If you're still watching up to now, type "I'm still here" in the comment section. He used $220 of his remaining $300 to buy ingredients. His mother Gloria had been cooking from scratch her entire life, and Marcus had grown up watching her. Jerk chicken, fried catfish, dirty rice, collard greens slow-cooked with smoked turkey. He had watched her hands move through those dishes 1,000 times and absorbed what she did without realizing it was a skill he was collecting. He bought a portable grill from a pawn shop for $35. He found a folding table at a Goodwill location for $8. He printed a simple handwritten style sign on cardboard with a marker. Marcus's plate. $7. Hot. Real food. The first morning, he set up near the construction site at 6:45. By noon he had sold 7 meals. He sat in the van afterward and calculated. 7 meals at $7 was $49. After ingredients, he had cleared roughly $22 in profit. A man who had once managed a household on a construction foreman's wages now felt something stir in him over $22. He went back the next day. 10 meals. The day after that, 5. A cold rain kept most workers inside. His cousin Deshawn called during the slow week. "Man, you really out here selling food from a folding table?" "Yeah," Marcus said. "Come on, bro. You a skilled laborer. This is embarrassing. Just come work with me at the warehouse." "I appreciate it," Marcus said. "But I'm good. You living in your van. For now." Deshawn went quiet. "You need to be realistic about your situation, man." Marcus looked at the cardboard sign propped against the folding table. "I think you might have a different definition of realistic than I do." He kept going. Something happened in the third week that no marketing plan could have manufactured. A project manager named Curtis, a large skeptical man who had walked past the table twice without stopping, finally got in line during a lunch break. He ordered the chicken plate. He ate it standing up, finished it, looked at the empty container and got back in line and ordered another one. He came back the next day. He told people. Word moved through the district the way word moves when something is genuinely good. Not through advertising. Through the particular enthusiasm of people who feel they have discovered something. Within 2 weeks, Marcus was selling through his entire inventory before noon. He scaled up. He started arriving at 4:30 in the morning to prep. He invested in a second portable grill. He added a daily special. For months after starting with a folding table, he had saved enough to put a deposit on a used food truck. It was a 2009 step van with a commercial kitchen build-out that had seen better years. The refrigeration unit made a sound like a distressed animal when it cycled on. The generator failed twice in the first month. A grease fire one Wednesday morning cost him $1,100 in repairs and a week off the road. He fixed it. He came back. "I don't understand you," his mother said one evening when he came to use her kitchen to prep a large catering order he had just landed. She was watching him move through her space with the efficiency of someone who had been doing this for years. "You have never cooked professionally a day in your life. How are people paying you for this?" Marcus smiled, slicing onions without slowing down. "Because you taught me, Mama. I just never told you I was paying attention." Gloria was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You get the catering? Signed the contract this morning." She put her hand on his back briefly, the way she had done when he was small. She didn't say anything else. She didn't have to. The catering contract was a corporate lunch account with a firm in Buckhead. It was modest, but it was consistent. It meant Marcus could project income, plan inventory, and stop living week to week. He moved out of the van. He got a studio apartment in East Atlanta. Bare walls, a mattress on the floor. A kitchen he used at 3 in the morning to prep for the next day. He did not care. He was off the floor. And then the obstacle arrived that nearly ended everything. A national sandwich chain opened a flagship location 2 blocks from Marcus's primary lunch spot. They had outdoor seating, massive signage, a loyalty app, and a marketing budget that dwarfed everything Marcus had built. Within 2 weeks, his lunch line had shrunk by 60%. He stood at his truck on a Wednesday afternoon watching a line form outside the new restaurant, and felt something he had been careful not to feel for a long time. Doubt. He almost called Deshawn. He held the phone in his hand for a full minute in the parking lot, thumb hovering over the contact. Then he put it away. He stayed open. He moved his location slightly, found a new pocket of office density 3 blocks east, and began focusing on dinner service, which the chain restaurant did not prioritize. He added a weekend brunch menu that drew a different crowd entirely. It was during this period that a food blogger named Keisha Tran stopped at his truck on a Saturday morning. She filmed herself ordering the shrimp and grits. She filmed herself eating it. She posted the video with a caption that read, "I drove 20 minutes out of my way to come back here. Find this man." The video had 2.3 million views by Monday morning. Marcus's phone stopped working correctly because the messages came in too fast for the system to process. The line the following Saturday wrapped around the block and down the adjacent street. Local news ran a segment. A regional food magazine reached out requesting an interview. 3 separate investors sent unsolicited emails within the same week. He expanded carefully. A second truck. Then a third. He hired people he trusted, trained them himself, and refused to compromise on the one thing that had brought people to the first folding table in the first place. The food was real, it was honest, and it was made with something that could not be franchised out of it. His care. But in the middle of all of it, there was a pain that success could not reach. His boys. Elijah and Isaiah were growing up in a house where the story of their father had been carefully constructed. He was absent, they had been told. He had not fought for them. He had moved on. The version of Marcus Johnson that lived in that house bore almost no resemblance to the man who had sat in a parking lot outside a courthouse and refused to stop breathing. During visitation, there was a guardedness in them that broke something in Marcus every single time. Elijah, the older by 14 minutes, had learned to be careful. He answered questions in short, measured sentences, like someone who had been taught that openness was a vulnerability. Isaiah was more instinctive, still prone to leaning against Marcus when they sat together, but even he had begun to hold something back. One afternoon, during a visitation that had been moved and shortened by a scheduling conflict Marcus had no ability to contest, Isaiah asked him a question quietly while they were eating burgers at a park. "Dad, why didn't you try to keep us?" Marcus set his food down. He looked at his son's face. He wanted to say everything. He wanted to produce the court documents, the filing dates, the attorney invoices, the record of every appeal and motion and request for custody review he had submitted over the years. Instead he said, "I fought as hard as I knew how to fight. I never stopped. I am still here. And I will keep being here." Isaiah looked at him for a long moment. Then he went back to his burger. But something in his eyes had shifted. "This story is not over. Stay right where you are." The truth found its own way, the way truth eventually does. Elijah, now 14, was doing a school project on family history. He was going through old papers in the house, papers Vanessa had kept in a filing box at the back of a closet because throwing them away would have required her to touch them again, and she had chosen not to. He found the court documents. He found the custody motions Marcus had filed. He found the records of supervised visitation requests, the letters Marcus had written to the family court mediator, the financial records showing that child support payments had never once been missed even in the months when Marcus was living in a van. He sat on the closet floor and read for 2 hours. Then he called his brother in. They sat together and read everything. Elijah called Marcus that evening. His voice was different from any tone Marcus had heard from him in years. "Dad." He stopped. Started again. "I found some papers." Marcus went very still. "I didn't know," Elijah said. "I didn't know any of that." There was a silence on the line that held more than anything either of them could have said. "I know," Marcus said finally. "I'm sorry. Don't be. That's not yours to carry. You hear me? That was never yours to carry." Elijah was quiet for a moment. Then, "Can we see you this weekend? Not visitation. Just, can we come see you?" "Yes," Marcus said. "Yes. Come whenever you want." He hung up the phone and sat in his office, an actual office now in an actual building with his company name on the door, and pressed both hands flat on the desk and breathed. This was the thing success had not been able to give him, and it had arrived anyway. Vanessa's life, meanwhile, had unraveled in the way that lives built on the wrong foundation tend to unravel. A second relationship had collapsed after 2 years, leaving her with legal expenses and a fractured sense of herself she was not prepared to examine. The house that had been the symbol of her victory in the divorce required maintenance she had underestimated. A business venture she had invested in heavily had returned nothing. She was not destitute. She was not suffering in any dramatic, visible way. But she was living with the particular exhaustion of someone who had spent years running toward something, and now could not remember what it was. She was at Hartsfield-Jackson one morning, catching a connecting flight for a business meeting that she hoped might turn things around. She had 40 minutes. She got a coffee from one of the terminal kiosks and found a seat in the lounge near Gate C. The television on the wall was showing a morning news program. She was not watching it. Then the reporter said a name. Her head came up. There he was. Marcus Johnson. Standing in front of a line of food trucks on a city block she did not recognize. Composed. Unhurried. Exactly as she had once known him to be and exactly as she had once decided was not enough. The reporter was talking about franchise expansion into 4 additional states. About an entrepreneurial award from a national business organization. About how it had all started with a folding table and $300. The coffee cup left her hand before she realized she had let go of it. She watched the screen. She watched him thank his mother. Thank his sons, both of whom were standing just off camera at the edge of the shot, teenagers now, tall like their father, watching him the way sons watch fathers they are proud of. And then Marcus said something on screen that she had not expected. The reporter had asked him, "Was there a moment when you thought it was over? When you thought you couldn't keep going?" Marcus looked directly at the camera. Not at the reporter. At the camera. "Every day for about a year," he said. "I had every reason to quit. I had nothing left. But I had a reason that was bigger than what I had lost. My boys. My mother's hands in her kitchen. My father's voice. You build from what's real. You don't build from what you think you deserve. You build from what you're willing to do." Vanessa sat in that airport lounge with the broken coffee cup at her feet and felt something she could not name and would not be able to name for a long time. It was not jealousy exactly. It was recognition. The recognition of a thing that had been true the entire time, which she had chosen not to see, and which the world had just made unavoidably plain. She had not lost a failure. She had let go of something real. Marcus Johnson did not know she was watching. He was standing outside with his sons after the filming wrapped, laughing at something Elijah had said. Isaiah had his father's old cardboard sign, Marcus's plate. $7. Hot. Real food. That Marcus had kept in a frame in his office, and was holding it up for a photo. Marcus put his arm around his son's shoulder and smiled. Not for the cameras. Not for the reporters. For himself. For the man who had sat in a parking lot outside a courthouse and decided to keep breathing. For the boy from Mechanicsville who had learned from a man on the back steps that work was not a punishment. It was an identity. That evening, his sons helped him close the truck that had started everything. The rusted old step van he had kept running through stubbornness and duct tape and refused to retire, which now sat in the corner of his company lot more as monument than machinery. Elijah ran his hand along the side panel and looked at his father. "Dad, how did you keep going when you had lost everything?" Marcus thought about it for a moment. "I didn't lose everything," he said. "I only lost what wasn't meant to stay." Elijah looked at the truck. Then at his father. "I'm glad you stayed." Marcus put a hand on his son's neck. The way fathers do when words are not enough and touch has to carry the rest. "Me too," he said. "Me too." There is a version of this story that ends with revenge. With Marcus Johnson triumphant while the woman who took everything watches from a distance with nothing left. But that is not this story. Because Marcus Johnson never spent a single day of his rebuilding trying to make someone else smaller. He spent every day of it trying to make himself larger. More capable, more present, more real. He never used his success as a weapon. He used it as a foundation. And the lesson it carries is not about divorce or betrayal or even perseverance, though it contains all of those things. The lesson is simpler and harder and more permanent than any of those. It is this: the thing that breaks you completely is often the only thing that could have shown you who you actually are. Marcus Johnson had to lose the house to find out he could build an empire. He had to lose the car to find out he could live in a van and still wake up and make food that people drove 20 minutes out of their way to return to. He had to lose primary custody to understand, with a clarity that comfortable men often never reach, exactly what his children meant to him. He had to be reduced to $300 to understand that $300, in the hands of someone who refuses to stop, is not poverty. It is a beginning. Sometimes the collapse you fear most is the doorway to the future you never imagined. And the man sleeping in a van with nothing left was all along the man who was going to prove that. What would you have done if you were Marcus? Would you have given up after losing the house, the car, and your children? Or would you have started over with only $300? Have you ever experienced a setback that later became your greatest blessing? Share your story in the comments below. And if this video moved you, hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more timeless stories that will stay with you long after the video ends. We have something special coming next that you do not want to miss.